Hey, this is Joe with J. Bradley Custom Pools from Houston, Texas, and you're listening to the Pool Chasers Podcast.
Welcome to your go-to podcast for the pool and spa industry. My name is Tyler Rasmussen.
And my name is Greg Villafania. And this is the Pool Chasers Podcast. Thank you for tuning in, Pool Chasers. We have an extremely important episode ahead of us. We will be talking with Alissa Magrum, which is the executive director of Colin's Hope. Colin's Hope is a nonprofit organization that raises water safety awareness to prevent children from drowning. There are so many things in this world that we have no control over. This really should not be one of them. When I was 5 years old, I found my little brother laying face down floating on top of a swimming pool at a family function. When my uncle brought him out of the pool, he was unconscious and not breathing. Thankfully, the medics had arrived and brought him back to life. I can't tell you what it's like to lose somebody from a drowning, but I can tell you that I was very close to losing my little brother forever. And that is something I'll never forget. Owning and maintaining a pool comes with a lot of responsibility. In this episode, we will discuss what Colin's Hope is and how you can help raise awareness for your family, team members, and your customers. We also want to express our deepest condolences to Colin's parents and any other families that have lost a loved one to a drowning. We also ask that you listen to this episode all the way through. Somebody's life could depend on it.
Thank you for joining us today, Alissa.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Of course, sometimes we are known for our titles or what we do, but we want to kind of get to know you a little bit more as a person. So can you tell us more about yourself?
Sure. Well, right now I live in Austin, Texas, actually in Lakeway, which is a little bit west, but I grew up outside of D.C. in Fairfax, Virginia. Nothing super epic about my childhood, but I started playing sports at a very early age. My primary sport then was soccer. Started playing soccer when I was age 5, but tried almost everything. Played basketball, was a diver, never a swimmer, but took a circus class. My parents really said, figure out what you're passionate about. And I went to a private Catholic school for most of my schooling, and then spent my summers hanging out at the pool, which we'll talk about later. And I have a brother, and pretty simple childhood. I was very blessed, and grew up in the suburbs of Washington D.C. and decided after I went to college in Virginia, and then decided I didn't want to deal with traffic as much as you did in that area. So made my way through a variety of channels out to Texas, and have been living in Austin since then for the last 20 years. And I love it. I like the heat most of the time. We've had some cold weather, but yeah.
That's awesome. Did you say you were in a circus class?
I was in a circus class.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Please. I came here with glitter today.
Don't want to just graze past that.
Does it surprise you? I know, it's pretty epic. So,
what is circus class, and how old were you?
I think I was probably like 6th grade, so 11 or 12, and I did do the trapeze, which I was good at that. I was not very good at the tight wire thing. I kind of if you look, isn't that what it's called? The tightrope, whatever, the thing you walk on, right? Mm-hmm. So if you look to the left, you will fall off to the left, and that was kind of my thing with that. But there was a thing that you got in with your hands and your feet, and you rolled like it rolled. We rolled down the parking lot. It was awesome. But the trapeze was kind of my thing. I did have like a brief, I think I'm going to join the circus thing.
Yeah. But what kind of school did you go to that offers that kind of elective?
Called extracurricular. Definitely not associated with the Catholic school I went to.
Is this the school that X-Men go to?
Maybe. Superheroes? I don't know. It was a brief stint. I did think about running away and joining the circus for a moment. It was fun. But I have done the trapeze. There's a place in Austin where you can do the trapeze, and I have since refreshed my trapeze skills. I'm pretty good. I can do that whole catch thing.
They let you do that at like age of 6 over in
6th grade. So I was like, I think I was like 11 or 12. But the stilts, I wasn't that great on the stilts either. But we did, we did all that stuff.
It takes time. You're going to be in the circus. You pretty much commit your life to it.
I know. Well, the thing I wanted was the lion taming, but they didn't
let you
They
do
didn't
that.
do that. No wild animals.
I don't know if
but
a lion would be intimidated by you, though.
very intimidating. It must be the glitter.
The glitter,
Is that why
and
the glitter?
the shortness.
I did have an iguana that I raised from being like 2 inches long until I think when he made his way off to the iguana stud farm. Yes, the iguana stud farm. He was like 6 feet long.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so I
That's
didn't tame
awesome.
lions, but I did
pretty
tame an
cool.
iguana.
That's sweet.
But he couldn't jump through like a ring
No
of fire or
fiery hoop.
anything?
Nope, no
Okay.
fiery hoop. We didn't
That's
get
all
to
right.
the
That's okay.
fiery hoop either. Maybe I need to go back. I'm sure there's like an
Man,
adult
circus school's
thing.
whack.
Didn't you have one of your best friends, Getty? His like family grew up in the circus.
Really?
Yeah, one of my best friends growing up was in the circus, so he was constantly practicing, and he was at Circus when I first met him. They were from Lithuania, but started at Circus, and then moved up to like, being a top performer at the Venetian, and now he just travels the world doing his. I don't think
What's his thing? Like, what's his circus trick?
It's called like, the last time I heard it was like the Rollabola Act. So it's pretty much these like circular devices. Almost looks like, have you ever seen the balance skateboards?
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
So it's pretty much like that, but you stack these things up. I mean, like 2 stories high, and you figure out a way to climb up it and balance on it and juggle on it and like do these weird hoop type deals.
Can you send me the link to some sort of YouTube video on this? Juggling was never one that I could do, but I could do that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was it was really cool seeing that growing up.
Cool. So you picked soccer, huh? So soccer through college, is a passion of yours?
Soccer through college, and then after college, I found my way to biking. First, doing a lot of charity riding, road rides. So 5 days riding 100 miles a day, raising money for some charitable cause that I was passionate about. And then when I moved to Austin, I found mountain biking, and I found the trail, and I found trail running, and which then, after I had done a lot of that, I had hip surgery because I think I did too much of that. And when I had hip surgery, I was forced to swim more. I had done some triathlon, so I found open water swimming. Never swimming in a pool. I do it for training, but I prefer to swim in the lake or open water. I can go really far at a really similar pace. And so I found triathlon, and then I found off-road triathlon, which is now my thing. I race, they're called Xterras, so it's open water swimming, mountain biking, and then trail running. And that's my passion. If I can get off the road and onto the dirt and the rocks, I'd much rather crash into those than cars.
Yeah.
So now that's what I do now. Also, I do all 3 of those sports individually, and I train in all of them, but I compete in Xterras, so the off-road triathlon.
Yeah. I looked into the Xterra after you talked about it.
You gonna do one?
No. I wish. Maybe someday. But, it was like crazy, this fitness of all these fitness experts. Like they went to Maui in these like really dangerous areas right when it first started. And that was like this whole... It was like a challenge of the best, and now it's evolved much more beyond that. But you said you've been to the Maui one before, right?
I've done the World Championships for Xterra are in Maui, and I've gone 3 times and raced that. And this last one in October was the most difficult, probably the most difficult physically the most difficult thing I've ever done. And the conditions were horrible, and quite frankly, they were unsafe. And I actually had I thought I was going to drown in the swim part, which was, I'm a really strong swimmer, and I'm really comfortable in the ocean and comfortable in the waves. And the swim course was what they call an M course. So you get in, they shoot the starting gun or whatever. You get in through the waves, you make it past the waves, the surf break, which when we got in, they were about 4 feet high, which is fine. And then you go out to a buoy, and you turn around and you come back, and you kind of body surf in. If you're comfortable doing that, you can save some energy. And then you get out on the beach, you run about 50 yards, then you get back in again. You go out to another buoy and then come back in. And when we went to get in the second time, the waves were epic. I had so much adrenaline going. I made a bad decision as a water safety person. This was, in retrospect, I should have done something very different. I should have not gotten in. But I went in, and the first wave was huge, and I was like, okay, I can go under it. I know how to do this. I can go under it. I'll just get on the bottom of the, on the sand, and got washing machined and turned around, couldn't figure out which way was up, ran out of breath. I was like, this is bad. Somehow came up and looked up, and there was another one crashing the same same huge, just crashing straight down. And so I went under again. I'm like, this is bad. And I actually had the moment where I was under there going, this is not going to end well. Like I am out of air, and came up the second time miraculously, gasping for breath, looked up, and there was another wave, the same size, a third wave. And I really, in the work that I do, which we're going to talk about, drowning prevention, this is the water safety lady who is in this race, and I really thought I was going to drown. Same thing happened on the third one. Came up after the third wave, and there was a calm in the waves, and so I just had so much adrenaline. I started swimming, got out, didn't fully process that experience because I had to get on the mountain bike, and it was super. The conditions were really bad. It was really muddy. There was a lot of pushing your bike versus riding, which in a world championship is disappointing. Got through the race and didn't really process the race very much. I had some teammates that one was getting stitches in the medical tent, another one was getting an IV. So I kind of was managing all of that and not really processing my experience. And about 2 weeks later, I was seeing a movie, and there was a scene in the movie where there's a dad and a son on surfboards, and it was really big waves, and they got separated. In the movie, the dad's yelling for the son, and this wave crashed, and I had an anxiety attack. Sitting there in the movie, I'm like, what is this about? I mean, like sweating, shaking. I'm like, couldn't figure out, and I realized I think I'm now processing that swim. And I went back and went to find some photographs to see how big the waves were, because is this in my head? Did I make this up, how big these waves were? And I found some photos, and I sent them to a friend of mine who trains lifeguards all over the world. And I just said, how big are these? Can you tell me how big these waves are? And one of the pictures, there's a swimmer, and he's got his swim cap on. It was the same. I know where he was in the race compared to where I was, so I know it was about the same time. And you see this head of the swimmers, and you see these waves, which were giant. And my friend sent him back, said, yeah, those are about 15 feet waves. You should not have been there in there. And there were people that got facial fractures, broken arms from the shore break. When we were coming back in, the surf was just crashing down. And so I'm very lucky. I learned a lot about myself. I'm an athlete ambassador to prevent drowning, and I talk about water safety before races. That's kind of one of my things before all the Xterras in Texas. And I had an experience myself where I should have made a different decision, and I now am telling that story to my fellow athletes. And had one person been on the shore when I was going back in and said, wait, or stop or something, it would have cut through the adrenaline, because clearly I didn't have I should have stopped and didn't. So I've been telling this story to fellow athletes just to say, we need to we're not invincible. No one is drown proof. And it's really interesting. Triathlete magazine put out a best of 2018 awards, and they gave the best age groupers award to everyone who did that race in Maui, because they said in their thing, they said rough waters. And I sent a comment back and sent the picture with the ginormous wave. I'm like, this rough waters is a small, bit of an underestimation of that. But so Xterras are more challenging, I think, from a technical standpoint than a road triathlon. You have to have technical skill to do it. So they're smaller races, and the distances aren't as long. I mean, because it takes longer to do off-road, the technical stuff. But I've found I love it. It's a good adrenaline rush for me, and I love the people. The people that do those races it's a culture. It's more laid back than road triathlon. So I found my home, and it keeps me busy. I don't like to train in one sport, so I get to train in three. Yep. So yeah,
and you're part of the Team Awesome, right?
Yeah, Team Do Awesome. Yep, Team Do Awesome. I'm on a women's charity race team. It's made up, but there's 9 of us, and everyone races mountain bikes, but we have some Nordic skiers. I'm the only Texas athlete. There's one other woman another Alissa actually in Oklahoma, and then the rest of our team, with the exception of one person, are in Colorado. And so there's a lot of a big gaggle that they do fat bike racing in the winter in the snow, which is really fun. We don't kind of have those conditions in Texas, but some Nordic skiers. But yeah, we race, and we race for charity. So we raise money for World Bicycle Relief, because all of us ride bikes, and then we each get a charity to choose. So I raise money for Colin's Hope and for my swim mission. I go to Honduras. I'm going next week every year to teach water safety and swim lessons to some kids that live in an orphanage on the beach. And so I raise money for those two things as well as World Bicycle Relief. And it's cool to be just a part of some really amazing women who are strong athletes, but are putting positive energy and positive everything into the world and trying to encourage other people to do the same thing. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Very cool. That's a very cool cause there. So,
Yeah.
When you're kind of facing the most difficult part of some of those events, is it usually just training that gets you through it? Or do you, like, psychologically, do you just go to a different place and kind of, use something to drive you,
Right.
To finish? Because I think it's for a special type of person to get through a race like that.
Yep. So a couple of things get me through. Grit is one. I mean, but for me, because I'm always racing as a drowning prevention ambassador, I actually think about why I'm racing. I think about the kids that I'm racing for. I think about Colin. I think about some of the other families that I work with in drowning prevention. And I really channel some of that energy. I feel like I have all these guardian angels. I'm like, okay, I need a little push. Somebody give me a push. I think about that a lot. I also think about my kids, my daughters, and, I want to be a good role model as a strong woman. And I'm usually digging deep. I'm little compared to a lot of the people that I race with. So I have some strength issues in terms of power that my body can generate. I'm working on that in the off season. But so when I dig deep for that I can be out there doing this stuff. There's so many people that can't. And I dig deep in for the why of why I'm doing it a lot. I know in Maui in that race, it was a suffer fest. I mean, it was really, really a struggle physically and just, motivationally. It was just, this is not very much fun. And this is a world championship. And what am I digging for? And I was saying the names of the kids that I was, that had been lost to drowning that I work with their families. I was saying their names over and over in like a litany. And I lost a nephew 10 years ago and Zachary pushes me. And those are the kinds of things I think about that may not be motivating to other people. But for me, that allows me to dig deep. I mean, there's a certain amount of, dig deep and just push the body. But for me, I do dial into that psychological side of things and find the grit.
Yeah. Have you always had that grit?
Like
even back when you played sports as a kid, because I know that's not an easy thing to.
I think I've
just have.
No, I think I've developed more of it in my adult life. I think if I look back I played more team sports then, and so you could kind of draw on the motivation of your teammates, and maybe it was the pressure of like wanting to be part of the team. But now I'm part of a team, but the sports that I do, I'm doing them by myself, so I'm not like. I don't feel that pressure to perform for my team. So I think I do dial more into that now than I ever did. I think when I was on team sports, it was more about the camaraderie and the, that kind of a thing and wanting playing time too. It's like,
That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Thanks for causing me to think about it. Cause a lot of times I don't think about that stuff. You do it.
Well, I think we all, and I listen to David Goggins a lot. And I don't know if you're familiar, but he's...
Oh, you will like him if you don't know who he is.
Okay. Yeah, check it out. But I mean, this guy went from being super overweight to, just changing his life around at a late age. He became a Navy SEAL and he's running 100-mile marathons in like 2 days, like crazy stuff. But talks about like, we all have that grit, inside of us. Mm-hmm. We just have to... You have to dig deep and understand that you're capable of doing great things. Don't let, the status quo and what you've been taught your whole life get you down. Like you can do whatever it is that you want to do. And I just think that people that have that, it's a very special thing. And I'm always kind of curious to, what would drive somebody to just go to the next level. 'Cause when you get done with one of those races, I can't even imagine how rewarding that must feel to knowing that you got through it. Maybe you didn't even have to win, but you got through it. A lot of people can't say that. And to know that your kids are looking at you as this, like just crazy role model that's like, wow, like my mom did something like that. Like a lot of their friends probably can't say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it must be just all encompassing, really good feeling.
It's every race or every event is different. If it depends on if I made the podium, that's like to me, that is part of the goal, but it's not the whole goal. It's, so yeah, I thank you for making me think about that. Cause
you're welcome.
you do it. But I'm going to dial into a little bit more too, and think about the what's pushing, because there's a lot of training that goes into doing this sport in 3 different sports, and you have to be internally motivated a little bit. It's funny, I have this conversation with my 13-year-old daughter because we're motivated very differently. I'm motivated to get up. I got up and ran this morning before I came here, and every day I like to start my day with something, whether it's a swim or a bike or a run or yoga, and that's just part of, I'm internally motivated. But I realize that everyone is not internally motivated. My 13-year-old is not internally motivated to do that, but something different motivates each of us.
Most definitely.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree with
causes
that more.
motivate me. Doing something for a higher purpose definitely is one of the big motivators, though, for sure.
Hey guys, we're interviewing a few of Jobber's customers today to let you hear their testimonials. So, all right, can you just tell me your name, your business name, kind of what you guys do?
Sure. My name's Hal Denbar with Patriot Pool and Spa in Austin, Texas. We are a service company that about 60% of our business is weekly pool cleaning, and the rest is equipment installation and repair.
What was the biggest change you saw in your business or personal life, like your time being extended or things like that, after you started using Jobber?
I'd say the biggest change was there were some time savings, but I think the biggest change was just having record keeping be much easier in terms of there was no chance I was going to lose a little slip of paper in a truck or misplace something out of just being too busy or too messy. Everything was cleanly in one piece of software to be found at a moment's notice.
I'm sure that was a big help as the owner, when you started having people do other jobs for you.
For sure. Plus it made our guys really excited because the 1 and 2, the first repair person we had and the other one that quickly came on had been working at other companies that were doing things on paper. So they were super pumped to be using software that made their lives easier.
Well, there you go. We could not have said it better ourselves. So if you guys want to check out a software solution for your business, please go to getjobber.com/pool chasers. That's getjobber.com/pool chasers. If you go to that website, you can get a 14-day free trial as well as 20% off your first 6 months. So it's a great deal. Check it out.
So who would you say has had the biggest impact or influence on your life, and why is that?
I would probably give that credit to my parents, who this year will have been married for 50 years. And as an adult, you go back, and I don't think I realized this when as a child how impacting they've been married, they have a really balanced relationship, they both work, they share responsibilities, parenting responsibilities, cooking, cleaning, all of that stuff. And I grew up having that really balanced childhood, I guess. And I watch them, and they my dad is retired. He worked for the Department of Defense for, I don't know, 45 years or something, and he's retired. Yeah. And worked at the Pentagon. And my mom is a nurse practitioner, and she's mostly retired, but she can't seem to retire, but they travel a lot, and they have just they've loved me unconditionally through all the things that I've put them through and my brothers put them through. And they're probably the biggest role models. I don't think I've given them enough credit and throughout life in telling them that. And as a parent now, as I navigate, teenager land with mine, I realize how big of an influence they had on my life, and knowing that they were always there regardless of how much I screwed something up, that unconditional love and support and belief in whether it was a circus class or service things that I did, or moving to Texas versus, staying close by. I really feel like they've had they probably win that award for me.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm sure, just them looking at the life you lead and the way you are with your children, that's thank you enough. Like, they probably know that they did a good job raising such a good person to do what they're doing. So I'm sure you're saying thank you in a different way, you know?
Yeah, well, I'm excited because my mom is coming on the Swim Mission Honduras next week, and she's going to work in the clinic. There's a hospital there, and she's going to work in the clinic. And so I'm excited to get to share that experience with her, because I do think also my commitment to service and helping others came very early, and that was something that my parents kind of started when my brother and I were really young. And I realized that that's so at my core, whether it's the work that I do in the nonprofit world or the stuff that I do outside, whether it's even racing for a cause or, volunteering or doing things. But I know that I'm excited that she's going to get to share in that experience, because I do realize I'm almost 45. I'll be 45 in July. And I want my parents to know that they did a great job. At least I think they did,
Sure.
So
You mentioned your Aunt Jane in the
yes.
response too, that you do a lot of charity work now and stuff. So she had kind of inspired you through that kind of stuff too.
Yes, my Aunt Jane, she's awesome. It's my dad's sister, and she is a social worker by trade, but has spent a lot of years working in nonprofit and working in education. And she's just kind of been that steady rhythm as I developed professionally. Before I did drowning prevention, I worked in dropout prevention. So I worked for Communities in Schools, which is a nonprofit that works with kids that are struggling in school. And my Aunt Jane also worked in sort of the education side of things, of bringing resources to kids that are struggling in the school. And so she, when I was working in that field for about 10 years, I got invited to this lunch, and I look at the agenda for the lunch, and my aunt is the keynote speaker. She lives in New York, and so I'm in Austin. I'm like, what? So I sent her a message and just said, I'm coming to your lunch that you're speaking at, and you're the keynote. And how cool is that? And I remember a couple of years ago, sitting and watching her speak and thinking, this is my aunt. This is someone that I aspire to be in the service field. And she's just, she swims every day. She and my uncle live in Brooklyn, and she swims at the YMCA every single day. And we go to the beach for summer vacations. And, I love what she puts out there into the world. And I've kind of always been, she's been a role model on a lot of levels. I don't get to see her that often, but I know that I follow her career, and I follow what she's doing. And she's actually just retired, but she went and she's getting her PhD, which is so cool. And so I'm like, I feel sorry for your instructors or teachers or whatever, because you probably know more than they do.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. It seems like you guys kind of do similar paths, and I'm sure you can pull inspiration from her, and it helps.
Yes, absolutely.
Was there ever anything that your parents told you that just really sticks out in your mind to help kind of motivate you in a certain direction?
I think they very much taught me to be grateful for the things that I have, and to know that not everyone has as much, and to share the things that I do have to help others. I think that's just been a thing that they role modeled that, and they also have said it. And I think that that's just something that now I'm trying to do as an adult and as a parent. And I think that's probably how I would answer that question. I realize now in my getting older age and reflecting on as my parents are getting older, just how many things that they did by doing them, and I watched them do them, or by saying them. My mom had some funny different strokes for different folks. She used to always say that, which is so funny. But it's true. And I found myself, I said that out loud to my daughter, and she's like, did you just really just say that? I think that's a Grammy-ism. Yeah. It's awesome. But I think that's one thing that I kind of was, accept people for who they are, and give back were probably some big ones.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I think, some people don't really, have that growing up. So it's nice that, we have books and podcasts and different things like that where we can listen to other people's stories, or just the people that host the podcast. They get to explain some of their stories, and it helps motivate a lot of people. It does for me. Do you have any, podcasts or books that, you recommend or you listen to on the regular?
Well, The Pool Chasers podcast, of course. Now,
Of course.
that's become my new favorite while I'm on the bike trainer. But no, so, okay, now you have to take the title for whatever, but I have the Drunk Athlete podcast, which you can listen to the episode that I'm on, but there's a lot of other ones. It's a friend who's Erin Trislow, who's in Austin, and she interviews athletes. A lot of them are Austin based, but I think she got out into Colorado, and that's one of my favorite podcasts because every kind of athlete, and the drunk athlete part is that you show up at her house where her studio is, and she asks you what kind of drink you want to have, and so she has a drink. I thought
that was pretty cool because you got to pick whatever drink you wanted to drink, and she had to drink it.
She had to drink it.
I thought that was a pretty cool.
I think it's secretly her way of just tasting,
trying different alcohol.
Everything. But
I thought it was a cool little concept to it. Yeah.
Well, I listen to podcasts when I'm on the bike trainer a lot, and one of the ones that she just did, she interviewed a family. It's the Dasso family, and it's a mom and a dad and their 2 daughters, and they're just amazing. The daughters do the Colin Holst Kids Triathlon every year, and they just smoke everybody. I mean, I think they're maybe 15 and 13 now, but they're just amazing athletes. And I listened to their podcast was on their family. Just they do triathlons together, and so she does that podcast. Because of the fitness related nature of it, I love that one.
I thought that was a really good one. I mean, I listened to the whole episode, and I listened to 1 or 2 others of hers. I think the concept is really cool.
Yeah. And then I will forever be an Oprah fan. I love Oprah, her Super Soul podcast. She just talks to a lot of amazing people, and I like the motivational kinds of stuff. I've started, Good to Great. There's a podcast, Good to Great, I don't know if you guys have read that book, but it's all about what makes businesses great versus good.
It's on my shelf in my office.
Oh, me too. It's on. I have a pile of books, and that's in there, and it's just the.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So I haven't delved too deeply into the podcast world, but I'm going to start doing more because I realized when I did a search, there's so much out there. And I actually read a magazine on the plane on the way here, Conscious Company, and there was like 35 women leaders, and a number of them had podcasts. So I have a list now to go add some to my library.
Nice. And we'll have to give you a few to listen to as well.
Yeah, love it.
Avid podcasters.
You mentioned you like the Brené Brown books, right?
Yes.
I like, she has that TED Talk. I think we've talked about it before.
About vulnerability. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I watched that one. It was a really, really cool TED Talk. I haven't read her books, but she's a really good speaker.
She's amazing. I've seen her live too. She's from Houston, so she came to Austin and did a big a thing when her last book came out, and she's kind of in that Oprah thing of but I do love, she talks a lot about being vulnerable. It's a hard word to say. Kind of like aesthetically pleasing. But anyway, she talks a lot about that, and I have all of her books, and I kind of, I have a attention span for reading that's like I have 10 books started at one time, and I'll read a chapter of one and then a chapter of the other. But she's got some good TED Talks and podcasts, and actually there's an Oprah one with her on it, and some really, really good stuff. But those I'm very inspired by the strong women. I just saw a podcast that's called like Women Who Badass. I'm going to get that one.
Nice.
Yeah, especially with like Oprah. I mean, she's got crazy grit for people that don't even know her story. I mean, if you think you can't do something, like hear her story. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that have overcome, certain life situations, but to be so successful after going through all those early life struggles, it's extremely impressive. And
knowing how many people she's inspired, and how many people's stories she's been able to tell. Yeah. And I like to say the Oprah effect of how this is kind of a funny story. So a long, long time ago, before do you remember the Live Strong yellow bracelets? Mm-hmm. So before those were a thing, I was doing a little consulting job for the Lance Armstrong Foundation, and the guy that I was working with, Doug Ullman, we were supposed to have a call at I think 4:00 or something on this particular day, and I went to call him, and the phones were like couldn't get through the phone lines. It's like however many years ago, 15 years ago almost. And I'm like, what's going on? So at that moment, Oprah had said on her on her show, go buy a yellow wristband. They're $1 from the Lance Armstrong Foundation. It literally like blew up. Their phones crashed. I think Yahoo was the search engine at the time, like crashed Yahoo. How many people? And it was like Oprah. Oprah said, go spend $1 and buy a yellow wristband. And how crazy is that? So
that is insane.
Yeah. So she's a hero. You know, that whole thing of like, who would you like to have at your dinner table or whatever. Oprah's on my list. Brené's on my list. Mother Teresa's on my list.
Hey, Pool Chasers. We hope you're enjoying this episode so far. We'll jump right back into it in a minute. We are very proud to announce that Jandy has come on as a supporter of the podcast.
Their dedication to the businesses that make up our industry align very well with our vision here at Pool Chasers, and we are super excited to have their support. With their recent quitting the internet policy, which went into effect January 1st, they're taking a firm stance to support our industry. They have pulled over 400 SKUs offline, and as of January 1, no manufacturer's warranty will be provided if the product is purchased online. They've even put a team in place which monitors the web 24/7 to help ensure that the details of the policy are being followed. We think this policy is a great step forward for our industry and are so glad that a company has taken a stand for service guys and gals out there.
So if you haven't heard episode 31 yet, please go listen to it to find out more information or go to jandy.com/builtstrong. That's jandy.com/builtstrong. Thank you so much for, sharing your life's journey with us. We really appreciate it. It's really good stuff. So Colin's Hope is an incredible organization, and we'll get more into that in a minute. But first, can you please share, Colin's story with us and, what happened on that fatal day?
Sure. So to kind of give my connection of how I'm even connected to Colin's Hope, there's a little context here. So my daughter Ella, who's in 8th grade right now, was in the same preschool with Colin. So a lot of people in doing this work, I have to clarify that I'm not Colin's mom. So just to set that up, on June 13th, 2008, Colin and his family and friends went to a busy pool, a lifeguarded pool. And imagine, if you guys think about this, you have kids and you've been we're in Arizona, so I'm sure that there's time spent by water, and it's a busy summer day, and it's a pool, and there's lots of kids in the pool, and there's lots of noise, and it's a lifeguarded pool, so adults are talking to each other and often think, the lifeguard's on duty, I'm good, the kids can have fun. And so on that day, so Colin was 4, and the picture that we use of him on our website and on all of our stuff was taken the day before he drowned, after he had completed a set of swimming lessons. So, you've got a 4-year-old who didn't love the water, wasn't a great swimmer, had swim lessons, but, I wouldn't say that they would describe him as a strong swimmer. And it was a pool that has a 0 entry. So if you think about that, it's the pool that starts really shallow and then just gets deeper. And I know when we were kids, at least when I was a kid, there was a rope that usually designated and told you how, when it got deeper, don't pass the rope, don't cross the rope. And there are fewer and fewer of those in pools. And so Colin, what they think happened was that Colin walked in the water, and it's getting deeper and deeper, and he followed some of the older kids into water and was suddenly over his head. And for not a strong swimmer, he panicked. And one of the things that we tell people and try to talk about is that drowning is fast and silent. So a lot of people think they're going to hear a scream or a yell for help. And when someone's drowning, most of the time they can't do that. So he got into water over his head, panicked, and no one heard him. No one saw him. Adults that were there didn't see him. Lifeguard didn't see him. He ended up right below the lifeguard stand. So in wasn't spotted in this lifeguard scan, and a bystander who was at the pool saw him at the bottom of the pool, and they pulled him out, got him on the side of the pool, and multiple people started trying to resuscitate him. A very good friend of mine, who's now one of our board members, Jamie Slaughter, was one of those people who was swimming laps in the lap pool that was next door, and he's a volunteer paramedic. And so he and some other folks tried to resuscitate Colin. Multiple attempts were not successful, and Colin never opened his eyes again. And it was, you think about it, and it's in doing prevention work, you try to think about what went wrong that day. What were the things that went wrong? How could this have been prevented? And, Colin's parents, Jeff and Jana Holst, I mean, that's the conversation they've had with themselves right after Colin died. And if you listen to Jeff talk, he'll talk about being on the computer like days after Colin died, searching for answers. How did this happen to us? How did we just lose our 4-year-old son who had swim lessons to a drowning? And he kept seeing the statistic that drowning is the number one cause of unintentional injury-related death for children under 5, but it's preventable. Kept seeing that stat over and over. And he's like, preventable. We just lost our child to something that we could have prevented. That as a parent, we're all parents here. I mean, just imagine for a second that you lose your child to something that could have been prevented. I mean, what does that feel like? So, Colin's Hope was born 3 months after Colin drowned with just a very simple mission to raise water safety awareness to prevent children from drowning.
Wow, that is a really tough situation, and we couldn't be more sorry for their loss. I mean, we see videos on YouTube and even on Twitter, and these families that are just so broken because they lost their son or daughter, and it's the hardest thing to watch because you, as a parent, put yourself in their shoes, and you're like, I can't even imagine living the rest of my life knowing that I could have done something to prevent that, because there's so many situations where, things happen. You know what I mean?
A disease or something that, yes.
It's very unfortunate, but a swimming pool is such a beautiful thing that we're trying to enjoy, but it comes with such a big responsibility. Mm-hmm. And if you don't take it serious, something like this can happen. And me and Ty talk about this quite a bit because I have 2 young daughters and he has 2 young sons. And, we would never for a second take our eyes off them because it's just, that's their everything. And without them, I don't even want to know.
Right.
But I want to share a story because I have a story of when I was younger living in LA. My younger brother, Matt, was 2 years old and he actually wandered out of the house and he fell in the pool. And I came out and I was probably about 5 years old and I saw him face down in the pool and I was very scared and I ran over. I didn't really know what else to do. I wasn't a very, good swimmer either. And I told my family and I said, Matt's in the pool. And I just remember everybody was drinking wine or something and they dropped the wine glasses and I remember hearing it just shatter and they all ran towards the pool. My uncle dove in and got him out and he was just, eyes were closed. I mean, it looked like he was done for, but somebody had called 911 and they came over and did CPR on him and thankfully was able to bring him back to life. But, we struggled for a really long time. He was, pretty much deaf in, both ears for, quite a few years. And there was a lot of, sleepless nights where he had stuff coming out of his ears and we were having to go to the hospital. So, being in, kindergarten, first grade, with hardly any sleep because we're in the hospital every night and just seeing your brother, go through so much pain, it was just, it's really difficult. We're thankful that we didn't lose him, but at the same time, it was, we're supposed to be enjoying pools, not, going through any of that. So that was kind of my story. And because I was, able to experience something like that, I feel like every little thing my daughters do, nobody is an influence on my house. I rent a house and there was no pool fence up, but there was a pool. And I said, hey, I will pay for this. I will contact somebody and I'll have this put up because I don't care. We have the wood block, for the sliding glass door. That's not good enough. It's not good enough. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
What are we really, how important is it really?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for sharing your story. And I'm glad that you had a more positive outcome, but also it's interesting because so many, for every fatal drowning. So like in Colin's case, it's estimated that there's 5 times as many non-fatal drownings. So as in your brother's situation where the child survives, sometimes with a lifelong injury, a brain injury, or in his case, a hearing loss and all that you guys had to go through. And a lot of times people don't think about the family impact of all of this and the family impact of whether it's fatal or non-fatal. You witnessed that, with your brother. You're the one that found him. You're the one, I gave you that water guardian hat today because you were his water guardian because you yelled for help and you told people, and that was ultimately what got him out of the pool. And this is something that is drowning. I found in talking to people for doing this almost for a decade, is that almost everyone has a drowning related story or a water related story, but it's not in the front of their mind until we start this conversation, until someone shares a story or until they ask me what I do or something like that. It doesn't matter if it's a kindergarten class that I'm talking to or a group of executives at a corporate volunteer engagement event or anything. The number of people that have a story to tell, something that's related to a water-related incident, they're there. I mean, I was speaking to some fifth graders, a student council that at the school, elementary school that Colin would have gone to, and they do a craft fair for us every year. It raises like $3,000. And I go talk to them about Colin's Hope and the money that they raise and what it's going to do. And I said, does anybody have questions? And every single child, with maybe the exception of 1 or 2, had a story that they wanted to share about my brother fell in the pool or my grandmother drowned or I fell in the pool and, someone pulled me out. And it's something that I realized people don't want to talk about it. They want to forget about it and they want to, but the reality is if we talk about it and we have this conversation, like you're talking about putting a fence or adding a layer of some type of layer of protection, these are preventable and they're simple things. One of the big things that I'm talking about lately, and there's a family, the foundation that we work with, the Joshua Collingsworth Memorial Foundation, and Joshua drowned in a backyard pool within weeks of Colin. And his parents wrote a book called Josh the Otter, and I listened to his dad, Blake, speaking at a conference last week, and his thing was, he said, we talk to kids about don't touch the stove, don't, hold a hand in the parking lot, look both ways before you cross the street, put your seatbelt on. So early age. I mean, he asked us in his session to say, when was the first time you ever heard that your parent or an adult tell you one of those things? And it's like so early that you can't even remember. And what we're trying to do is we need to do the same thing about water safety with our kids at a very early age and as adults and parents and caregivers or just grandparents even. I sat next to a lady on the plane yesterday who was telling me that her son, she has a grandson who's almost 2, and they have a pool and there's no fence around it. And we had that whole conversation, and it's engaging people in a conversation about what they can do. Because again, like you mentioned that these are preventable, and to think about not doing something simple that could prevent losing your child or having your child have an incident that is, a lifelong physical injury or emotional trauma. It's simple stuff, and it really, really, really is. And I know we're going to get into some of them, but this is one of those things. Like, it is preventable, and we can do something about it. So it's time to start now.
Most definitely.
Yeah,
I took when I was reading a lot of research on it and watching all these stories. I told you I went down this long rabbit hole. Because Greg and I ran the pool company, and talk about. Now, even more, we've been talking about other ways we could have probably been a little bit more helpful and a little bit more like reminders to our team and other things. But, I was watching some of those videos, and I to watch the parents' regret is like the worst part about the whole thing. It's terrible that the kids drown and die, but to see the parents talk about it and show their experience where the kid was sitting in their lap 5 minutes before and they took their eyes off of them, and then, they never opened their eyes again. And there was one story about the ocean, and that one really hit home for me because it was a little boy, but he the dad went out to the ocean and the boy followed him and reaching for his hand. And he didn't know he was reaching for his hand. You might know who I'm talking about, but
Wyatt. I think you're talking about Wyatt, and it was a lake situation. I think that's Wyatt Dale. I think that's who you're talking about.
Yeah. And he talks about how he told his son and daughter to stay there and play in the sand, and then he got lost for 30 minutes, and they found him, and he obviously drowned. But then he talks about at the funeral, his daughter was. His daughter said, "It's okay, Daddy," and he said, "I wish I just could have done something." And she said, "Well, you could have grabbed his hand," and and then he realized that like he was following him and he was reaching for him for help, and I just saw
it's a lot. It's a lot,
and dramatic experience for those parents, and
Well, I have so much respect and admiration for the parents. So Jeff and Jana Holst, Colin's parents, who obviously I work with daily, and all the parents of the that we work with, we've formed a collective called Families United to Prevent Drowning, and it's getting to be a very large group. But the parents that are part of that have chosen to dedicate part of their life, most of their life, a lot of their life to creating a legacy for their children in Colin's case, and but wanting to make a difference and wanting to share their stories. And it takes a lot of courage to share these stories, especially when there's like you were saying, I mean, these parents, I mean, I can only imagine what it feels like on a daily basis. All the situations are different, but they've chosen to take their grief and turn it into something that's going to try to save lives. And I have so much respect and admiration for, not every parent can do that. None of us know whether we could be parents that could turn their tragedy into triumph is how I've heard it said a lot. But the ones that can, that's why I'm dedicated to this work. When I started doing this with Colin's Hope, I was like, I'll do this for 5 years and I'll get them on my master's degree is in organizational leadership and ethics. I'll get them on a path and then I'll move on to something else. And I've been the executive director for 8.5 years now. And I'm so committed to the work that we're doing because I know that we're saving lives. In prevention work, it's hard because you see drownings continuing to happen. You don't always know about the ones that you prevent. You get stories of people say, "Oh, I was wearing the water guardian badge and it made me, I was watching the water and my child went under and I was able to get to them because I was actually watching. I wasn't barbecuing or whatever." And so you hear those stories, but you have to keep pounding the pavement every single day, even though you see drownings continuing to happen. But you just hope that there are fewer of them, and you hope that more, that we can, start by we educate parents and we educate kids, because if we can grow that culture of water safety from the ground up, so we're teaching kids kind of like the don't touch the stove, like don't go to the water without an adult, and we do both, and but again, the parents that are passionate because their hurt it's kind of like I was telling you guys about my tattoo. That's the one with it's a heart with sea glass with spaces in between the pieces of sea glass where the light shines through. And there's a quote that's something, I'm going to totally butcher it, but the wound is how the light gets in. And I feel like for a lot of these parents, like the light, the wound is they're letting the light shine through, and that's the light of their children, in hopes of making a difference. And it's one, the grief is crazy and you never know what each day is going to look like. But I do feel like that telling the stories, people connect with stories. People connect with, Colin's story. And, there's another family, the Gage family, they lost their 15-year-old son, Connor, and they have the LV project. And Connor did a flip off a boat dock and wasn't wearing a life vest. And he was a strong swimmer, but just landed badly and went under. And in lake water, you can't see. And Connor's story connects with older kids or with open water. So the parents sharing their stories is huge. And I honor their courage and their, ability to do that, because in some ways I know Colin's dad talks about, he loves getting to hear Colin's name every day, or he'll be driving and we do billboards in Austin. And he'll drive up on, a billboard, and you see we use Colin's picture and everything. And for him, that's become a positive thing of getting to say Colin's name every day. And I can only imagine that for parents, there's a bit of, it's also hard, So
it's got to be so difficult because something that I don't hear as often is the amount, if something were to happen to my children, thinking about that pain and agony of actually drowning, that hurts so much in thinking about any little kid going through the most torturous pain before they're done. Like, and if you have kids and you're listening to this, like you should take every preventative measure there is in the whole universe to protect that from happening.
Yep.
This world, this life we have is already difficult enough. And there's so many things that we don't have control of.
This one we do.
This one we have full 110% control of. We can do something about it. There doesn't need to be one more drowning for forever. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But you have to focus in on it. There comes a huge responsibility when you have a pool. And we're going to go through all those different steps, but just remember what these people have been through. Every time you go to a pool, you should think about that. You should have a good time, but you should not for a second let your kids out of your sight. You got to leave. You got to turn your back. What are you willing to roll that dice? Take your kids with you.
Right.
You get the house wet, whatever happens, who cares? They're alive. They're breathing. Everything is good. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Well, and I'll add in pools, obviously, because we're talking about mostly about pools, but any kind of water. I mean, I know in Texas, we're sadly this year, and it's the beginning of March, right? We're up to 8 fatal drownings this year of Texas children, and 5 of them are in bathtubs. So you talk about preventable. Don't put a drop of water in the bathtub. I mean, that's, but people don't think. So much of this is awareness and just talking and having the conversation. In pools, obviously in Texas are over 50% of our fatal drownings every year. And I'm probably the same. I don't know what the stats are here in Arizona. But I bet you have more pools, I think, than we do in Texas. And so it's any kind of water. And you're exactly right, though. It's like, don't roll the dice. This is one that you can control. Yeah. Whatever. Turn on your control freakness.
But even as adults, I mean, we've all seen it where people are acting a little crazy by the pool. I mean, I was at a pool party when I was younger, and one of the adults dove into the pool, and it was the shallow end of the pool, and he chipped out like 2 teeth because he wasn't paying attention to how deep the pool was. And that goes to say you shouldn't even swim by yourself.
Never swim alone. Yep.
You could slip, crack your head, and that's like game over.
Anything.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
yeah, no, the message is for everyone. I mean, obviously the younger children are at a greater risk. However,
they don't know the consequences.
Right. They don't know the consequences. But if you look at the, closed water versus open water, I'm doing a session at the International Boating and Water Safety Summit in Florida at the end of this month. And it's on, the title of the session is Bridging the Gap from Open Water, or from Closed Water to Open Water. And the concept is we teach kids how to swim. Most of us learn how to swim in a pool. It's clear, it's warmish, it's calm. And then we go to the ocean, or we go to the lake, or we go to some other open water type of thing, and we expect that it's all going to be the same, and it's not. And so, as kids get older, and especially in adults, when you add in alcohol into the situation, you lose people in open water as for all of those things. So really this message is, as adults, let's take the responsibility and teach our kids about safer behaviors around water. And as adults, let's enforce those and make rules around water safety. And then as adults, let's be good role models. Wear life jackets in open water. It drives me crazy when I see like an adult with their kid on a bike and the kid's got a helmet on and the adult doesn't, or you're on the lake. And I live by Lake Travis. And so spend a lot of time at the lake, and you see, adults not wearing life jackets and kids. And then as soon as the kid is of age where the law says they don't have to wear it, they don't have to wear it. These are simple things, really.
And the ocean is nothing to mess with.
Oh,
it is.
to
me, I consider it a vacuum, because if you've ever, tested the ocean, you get out there a little bit and you're like, how come I cannot swim back? Wait a minute. I was at Pier 1 and now I'm at
Hello,
pure
Rip
100.
Current.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, well, like you said, there's everybody probably has a story or knows somebody that has gone through something, but we don't really always think about it. But but the tragedy for Colin, happened, and then their family started that only 3 months later, which I think is pretty remarkable.
Absolutely.
To even be able to do something like that so quickly, because until you go through it, which none of us, we have an idea of the pain, but until you actually, it's your child who dies. I can't even imagine.
You don't even know what you're going to do, but
yeah. So you don't know how you're going to react, but it's pretty remarkable. And, I think for the parents to be able to do that. But so can you kind of tell us more about Colin's Hope and what they do, what the organization does, and what your role is and with that? And
Sure, yeah. So one thing is, Colin used to say today was the best day ever. That was his thing. And so that's become our mantra as an organization. We love the water. We want people to love the water, enjoy the water. And we know that this is it's a serious topic, but we also want people to love the water. So we use Best Day Ever to turn it around a little bit more positive in the work that we do as an organization. So we've been around, it'll be 11, we're going into our 11th year of existence. And we've done a lot of really hard work over those years to find interventions and strategies that work. There's a lot of people that are doing a lot in drowning prevention and a lot of different things. And a lot of times it ties to what happened in their situation. And, but for us, the major things that we do, we distribute water safety cards, it's a laminated card that has Colin's story on one side, so a letter from his parents, has 5 things people can do to prevent drowning, has tips that are also then on our website, and then it has a water guardian badge. You'll hear us use the term be a water guardian. Other people use be a water watcher. We mindfully choose water guardian versus water watcher because it's more of like a state of being. We want people to be water guardian, not just watch the water when you're around it. So we have it's a credit card size piece that breaks out of the water safety card with a coiled wristband. And our idea there is we challenge people to appoint an adult water guardian when they're in, near, or around water. So for example, you use the scenario of a pool party. We have a pool party. We've got like 20 kids in the water. We want someone to be an undistracted adult who is wearing the water guardian badge, and they're actually watching the water. So drowning is fast and silent, and we want eyes on the water. So then say you have to go to the bathroom or take a phone call, you physically transfer that duty of being the water guardian to somebody else. So it's like, hey, Tyler, I'm going to the bathroom. Can you be the water guardian? Or, hey, Greg, I got to go answer a phone call, and you physically make sure that somebody's watching the water. So we distribute over 75,000 of those every year, English and Spanish. We partner with anyone and everyone to get them out. We've got some really unique partnerships with pool service companies that hand them out, pool companies that are in the pool industry that are putting their logo on them and handing them out every time they sell a product, Latham and CoverStar. We actually are working with the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, and they distribute water safety cards when they go in and do home visits, parent education home visits. We have schools that hand them out, swim teams that hand them out. We work with our other drowning prevention organizations to hand them out. So that's one big thing that we do as an organization. And that's the awareness side and the parent, caregiver, adult kind of side. What we do for kids, because we really do feel like targeting that under 5, because Colin was 4, and the statistic, we talked about good to great, and there's the hedgehog principle in that, which is where hedgehogs do one thing really well, and as an organization, you pick something that you do really, really well. You have the resources and the passion around it. So our hedgehog is education, parent and caregiver and child. So for the children, we have a preschool curriculum. It's actually targeted towards ages 3 to 7. It can go towards older kids, or it can go a little bit younger depending on the child. But it's an evidence-based, which means we actually evaluated it, spent money to evaluate it, and it works. We have statistically significant evidence. And in the evaluation world, that means we've actually done a scientific study, and what we're doing is working. And so we have this curriculum that can be put into a preschool, and it can be taught in 15 to 30-minute lessons. You can do it in a preschool, in a camp, anywhere basically where you can gather up kids. In our partnerships with the YMCA in Texas, we partnered up with swim lessons. So the kids get the dry land curriculum from us, the curriculum that we developed, and then they get swim lessons alongside of it. That's ideal, but there's a lot involved in transporting kids and to swim lessons and all of that. So our curriculum is called Water Safety with Colin and Friends, and it's really groundbreaking in drowning prevention because it is evidence-based, and it can fit into a summer camp. It can fit into, if you only have, when I go do career talks or go talk to kids, I teach the first lesson in the curriculum, which is all about learning these 5 rules. We call them the whole hand rules because kids know rules. Kids know a hand, and they know 5. And so we teach them 5 basic rules of water safety. And then we challenge them to go home and talk to their parents or their caregivers, their adults, about those rules. So it's like, don't go to the water without an adult. Learn how to swim, wear life jackets, always have grown-ups should be watching you, and stay away from drains because there's drain safety stuff that we talk about. So we do that. That's the curriculum is available. We're trying to get it into as many places as humanly possible because it really can change and grow those behaviors at an early age that we were talking about. I mean, if we're teaching our kids in preschool that all of these things, then we're more likely for them to have positive behaviors around water safety. And then they're taking that information home to their parents. I tell kids all the time, and I'm sure some parents are annoyed by this, but when we get to the part that says grown-ups should be watching you, I say to kids, I'm like, you can tell your adult, and you can tell Miss Alissa from Colin's Hope told you this, but if you're at the pool or you're in the bath and there's not a grown-up watching you, I give you permission to say respectfully, hey, grown up, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, babysitter, whatever, watch me. Mm-hmm. Put down your phone, stop talking to whomever and actually watch me, and empowering kids to take some of that, for themselves. And so those are the primary things that, we educate adults and we educate kids. We also have a water safety quiz on our website, which is,
I think you would get like a little bit of shock and awe if you had a kid tell you that, right? Like if you're on your phone and the kid's like, hey, can you get off your phone and watch me?
Oh, I've had Facebook messages from parents after that says, Alissa, I guess you were at my kid's school today or whatever. Yeah. I had a situation where I was talking to a troop of Girl Scouts. They're called a troop, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know, brownies. Mm-hmm. Girl Scouts, the little ones, brownies. And we were talking and I said, does anybody have a backyard pool? And a bunch of them raised their hands. And do you go out to the pool ever without an adult watching? And this one little girl was like, oh, my mom cooks dinner while I'm out there at the pool. And, these are brownies are 5 or 6 or something. And I'm like, okay. And of course the mom was actually there sitting in the back and, doing the whole and I was like, okay, well, this is a good chance to educate. And you can say, get out of the pool. I'm going to empower you to not get in the pool if there's not an adult there. And then you have the power to go in and say, hey, mom, can you come watch me, please? And that you can do that. You're hey Brownie, right? It's leadership development. But I make sure that I say do it respectfully. But sure. I think it's a really good thing to start teaching our kids to take some of this into their own hands and help educate, and they will do it.
But even as a parent, awesome. You pay attention to your kids and you love the little cute things they do and all that stuff. But then I can imagine being on my phone and hearing my son be like, "Hey, Dad, put your phone down and watch me." That would be hilarious. Yeah. But it just it would be more of it'd be more of maybe I wasn't really paying full attention, and even after talking with you the first time, our initial talk, I went home and told my wife, because our bedroom and bathroom are connected, and a lot of times I would be sitting in the bedroom and watching TV while they're taking baths, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. So now we sit in the actual bathroom, So just stuff like that makes you kind of just think and realize you can just change a tiny bit of your
behavior. It's behavior change,
but it's crazy. Even a kid that's in preschool, you could teach them to be potty trained. You can teach them all these different things. So I would think it'd be much easier teaching them to stay away from the pool or pool safety than, something like potty training.
Yeah, going to potty training, and you teach them to tell you like, oh, I have to pee, I have to go, poop, I have to do this. It's like the same. It could be the same similar like reaction, because anytime through the potty training process that happened with us, or if your kid tells you they have to go to the bathroom, like you drop everything that second,
right?
Like run them over to the bathroom. So it's
to let you know that the door got left open or a gate isn't latched or something like that. If you
make them little reporters. They love that. It's, I think it's, but again, it's that culture shift. It's that this is everybody's deal to think about. I mean, I cannot tell you how many people I talk to and they'll be like, oh, my kid's fine. They've had swim lessons, or, oh, that's not going to happen to us. And that's happening to a certain demographic, and drowning, it has no boundaries.
Right.
That's what everybody else thought.
If you talk to all of the families that we work with that have lost a child or almost lost a child to a drowning, none of them thought that this was going to be their reality, right? And so if we get to people and get to them beforehand and just sort of, again, I really feel like it's a culture shift. It's like we used to not put seatbelts on, and now we don't even think about it.
Yep.
We need to do that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to just
take
you off the rail. You were talking about the water safety quiz.
Oh, the water safety quiz. So, yes, on our website, we have a water safety quiz. It's 10 questions, everything from don't leave your child unattended in a bathtub to how to get out of a rip current. And you can't fail it. You can't get it wrong. I took a bunch of quizzes when I was developing this, and I hated the ones where be like, you've got a 50. It's like, I'm not going to share that on social media. Forget it. So I made sure that if you get a question wrong, it throws you a little ring buoy and a hint. And then if you get it wrong the second time, it just passes you on to the next question. And at the end, you can print out I'm a water guardian little certificate. We have lifeguards that all of them take it, and then they print out their certificates and put them on the wall at the pool. And we use that quiz. It's free. It's just a really great way to educate people, and it's again, it covers, I went to, for each question, so for example, the rip current question, how to get out of a rip current. I am not a rip current expert, so I went to the USLA, the U.S. Surf Life Saving Association, and got guidance on how to write that question. And for the drain question, I went to our partners at the Zach Foundation and Abby's Hope, which they do drain entrapment, because both of those children were lost to drain entrapment situations. And so the questions are I think they're legit, and it's a pretty great way. You can share it on social media. There's a little space at the bottom where you can put in a hashtag. So we could do hashtag pool chasers and see how many people you guys can get to take the quiz. We've had, I think we're just approaching the 6,000 people have taken it, and in over 20 countries. It's in English and Spanish. We got a request to translate it into Estonian. So if anybody knows that, we're fantastic. We'll make that happen. But it's a really easy way to educate people, because I do think education is huge in this.
Yeah, I took it and passed it. Yay.
Yay.
So actually the certificate's in my office, but
So Tyler, would you rather gossip with your friends or watch your kid at the pool?
Yeah. So my point of that is, I think, the questions were very well thought out, and if a lot of them are kind of obvious answers, which, you shouldn't be failing. So I feel if you fail, you should probably rethink being around pools and kids. But,
hopefully you're being
they're
honest
really good
when taking it, though.
And they're really good reminders of, hey, like I said about the bathtub, I wasn't thinking that much about I was sitting right there, right pretty close to my kid, but, I wasn't really in the same room, so he could just knock his head and I wouldn't be in there, something just little reminders of that, like, hey, you should probably watch these things. And I think that's really good. You can tell they're very well thought out, and it was good. It was a good quiz, and we will be challenging everybody.
Yes, we will.
To take that here shortly.
Well, and the bathtubs too, not to go back too much on it, but the the actual faucet part that comes out is what has always scared me the most, because I'm like, man, it would just take one good get under it and hit your head up, because kids are attracted to to that, because that's where the water's coming out and they're, you know, playing with toys or whatever it may be. But that thing is...
You just gave me an idea, because you just gave me an idea, and I'll credit you with it. Yeah, well, so yeah, because we've been trying to think of with what's happening in Texas right now with the bathtub drownings, and there were 11 or 12 last year fatal drownings in bathtubs in Texas. And we've been trying to think of how do we message around this. We need to respond to this. That's one of the things that at Colin's Hope that we have the ability to do. If we're seeing, I analyze the data, the best data that we can get, I analyze it daily to see what's happening. And bathtubs are a thing right now. So it's like, we've been thinking, do we do a shower tag, like a hang tag that we put in? Do we do a sticker or like a window, a mirror cling or something? But what if we did like a bathtub, a faucet?
Yeah, there's like, you know,
that
ducks
says
and ducks and turtles and other things that that slip over the faucets.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
You know, what'd be cool is actually two different things. Either one of those like anti-slip, but like, you know, something that says like, you know, watch me or something.
Yeah.
And it's like big, bold type and your feet aren't so slippery in there, or some kind of cover at the bottom. So when I'm giving the girls a bath, we have kind of like a towel or something that sits on the bottom that we put our knees on, so that, you know, we're not, you know, all hunched over.
Yeah, we have an actual like cushion that we put our knees on too, so you can print out like.
Okay, we need a little angel investor to help us. Let's do these. Let's do these things.
It's pretty cool.
That'd be really cool.
So yes, I will say one thing that is something different about Colin's Hope that, and really I'm sitting here today, that's testament to it, is that we are choosing to really work with the pool industry in every aspect of whether it's builders or service maintenance, retail, manufacturers, to try to engage this industry in helping us get this message out, because and that's something that, again, we're a small organization, we're small but mighty. And when it comes to resources, that part is frustrating, but it also is very empowering, because it allows us as an organization to be flexible and see a partnership that looks like it's something that could really help us get this message further, and we can respond to it. So we're making a valid
effort.
Is that the word I'm looking for? Valid effort to engage with the pool industry, because I understand how much power and influence in that the pool industry has on us ending drownings, and certainly ending pool drownings. And that's something that Colin's Hope wants to partner with, you know, anyone who will work with us to do that and help get this message out. And I like to create partnerships that work for everybody. It's not going to be just about Colin's Hope with, hey, we're great, we're a nonprofit, we're doing this work, but it's really like, what's going to help you in this partnership and what's going to help us get the message out, and let's develop something that we can work together. And I think that's something that really I want to be vocal about and be mindful about, because if anybody listening wants to work with us, please reach out. We will develop a partnership, and if you have whatever that is, that's where I feel like we get to be creative and strategic, and that's one of my favorite parts of my job, actually.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we're going to jump into a lot how we can help out more, so that'd be good partnerships. So and just by all the research we've done on you guys, and we can really see that Colin's Hope is a great organization. You guys are making a huge impact, and I think that's one of the reasons you really enjoy being a part of it. And so, how did you kind of get involved with the organization? What do you kind of do for them?
Sure. So immediately after Colin drowned, I worked for another nonprofit that I worked with a lot of counselors and social workers. And so the day after Colin drowned, I got a call from the director of the preschool, or the owner of the preschool where Colin went and where my daughter Ella went. And he said, hey, I know you work with counselors and social workers. We lost a student to a drowning yesterday, and our teachers are a mess. We need some help. Can you send some counselors over? And I did that. And then I had a huge wake-up call as a parent, because we lived by the lake, and at the time my daughter was 3 and she could swim across the pool, and we spent lots of time at the lake and the pool, but I really didn't think about drowning. I mean, I'm a competitive triathlete, I swim all the time, but I really hadn't thought about it. I think about bike helmets and seatbelts, but I just hadn't had that. We had a life jacket, and so anyway, it was a wake-up call for me. So Colin's Hope started 3 months later, and I just decided I'm going to volunteer. I went to the first community event that they had, where we have a water safety bingo game, and we were standing outside of this restaurant, and like the U.S. Coast Guard auxiliary guys are there volunteering, tying knots and doing whatever it is. They're great guys. And Ian Crocker, who's a Olympic swimmer, was there. He lives in Austin. He was there, and we were playing water safety bingo. And I just, as a parent, was like, this is something I want to be a part of. And it was all volunteer led. It was Colin's family and friends. And then they decided to do a triathlon, a kids triathlon. And I'm a triathlete, so like I can volunteer for that. So I volunteered for that. And then I did that for a year, and then I had hip surgery, which was I was told by my doctors, you're not going to be biking or running for a while, so you should pick a goal of swimming, do something, because I need a goal. So I decided I was going to swim 4 miles in Lake Austin. So I had never swam more than a mile, or 1.2. So I was going to swim from point A to point B. There's a bridge in Austin called the 360 Bridge. I was going to swim from the 360 Bridge, just have a kayaker next to me for support, and swim 4 miles to the Tom Miller Dam, which was get out and go have lunch at the Hula Hut, which is a restaurant on the lake. And I was going to do this, and I'm like, I'm a charity athlete. I'm going to raise some money for Colin's Hope. So I call up, it was the day I had my surgery. I called Jeff, Colin's dad, and said, hey, can I raise $20,000 for Colin's Hope? Can you set me up something on the website to raise the money? And to make a very long story short, he said yes. It ended up me and 19 other people did this. It's called the Got to Swim Lake Austin now. And we swam 4 miles, raised $20,000, and that became my second volunteer thing. And that rolled into them deciding they wanted to hire an executive director to do what they really wanted to do, to make the impact that they wanted to make in drowning prevention. They needed somebody to do it full time. So they asked me to do it. My background is in nonprofit. I had just gotten my master's degree in organizational leadership and ethics, and Ella was in kindergarten at the time, so it was a good chance to not have to be in an office every day at a certain time. I could do things at the school and use my master's degree to help start this organization. So I'll do this for 5 years, and 8.5 years later, we're making some big impacts. So that was how I first got involved. And now I didn't know anything about water safety and drowning prevention when I took this job. It's not really a job. It's more of a life work calling. But that was a learning curve for me that was easy. I learned about the water safety side of things. And in doing so, the part that I didn't know I was going to come in contact with was all the families and the emotional aspect of this, and really working beside those families to do things in honor of their kids. That's become a huge thing that I struggle with some days, because emotionally I don't have good boundaries with it sometimes, and it's hard. I mean, you feel that pain. We talked about that before, and so that's sort of a side tangent of this job that I didn't know I was going to get into, but I also am so grateful for it, because I feel like I can play a role, because I didn't lose my child to a drowning. I can play a role for those families a little bit that helps them. Sometimes it helps, I'm just a listener. Sometimes it helps move them to do something that maybe they wouldn't have been able to make that decision because of their grief. Mm-hmm. So I'm so grateful for this experience, and it's a place, but Colin's Hope is I'm able to do a lot of really creative things to help us get this message out, and I love that, because I think that's how we're going to make a bigger impact.
One thing I think I've heard you say before is like you're honored to carry on Colin's legacy, right? It's really important to you, and obviously that's what Colin's Hope is about, carrying on his legacy. And I think I've heard you say it before,
Absolutely. And I drive, we have a wrapped vehicle, which is like the best marketing dollars we ever spent. I've been asked, how many vehicles do you have in your fleet? I'm like, fleet of one, that would be it. But Colin's on the side of it. And every day when I walk out the door to get in the car and I see that little guy, it reminds me of why I'm doing this, and of his, he was lost way too early into something that was preventable, but look at what's being done to create that legacy. And it's a huge responsibility. Huge responsibility. And I mean, everything from, if we're going to put up a billboard, I use what I call as the Colin filter, or the Jeff and Jana filter, as parents, and say, okay, if we put that up there, they have to drive by that every single day. And what does that feel like? And would that be what they want his legacy to be? So, but yeah, it's a big responsibility, but one that I take so seriously, but I'm so honored to be able to have their trust to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's I'm sure for them, I don't want to speak for them, but they found a really good partner in you. I mean, because I've heard now multiple videos of you talking and different other things that you've shared, and it seems that they found the perfect partner because you care so much, and that's hard to find, I think. And a lot of people don't care enough about themselves or even their own families, let alone take time to care for other people's families and other children and other it takes it's very, very cool of you to be able to kind of handle that responsibility. And I'm sure they're very grateful, as I would be as that parent, to find somebody that cares so much that they think about, their feelings and think about how it's going to impact their family and their lives by everything they do. So,
Well, thank you for that. And I think they certainly do. And they expressed that to me. So,
yeah. Well, one thing you mentioned earlier was, talking about the pool service companies and what we can kind of do to, help move forward with, drowning prevention. But you had mentioned to us before, that you actually took time and serviced pools for a while to understand a little bit more about what pool companies do on a daily basis. So can you kind of share that with us?
Sure.
And kind of what you learned from that experience?
Sure. So I have a friend in Dripping Springs, Texas. Her name's Patty Sue Wilson, and her pool company is Radiant Pools. And she was a friend, and she was going through a breast cancer situation. And I said, how are you going to clean pools and have radiation and do all of that stuff? And she needed some help. So I said, oh, well, I'll help you. And part of it was because I wanted to help her. And then I suddenly learned that I could also spend time in people's backyards and watch really behaviors around the pool and learn a lot that I can then take into my work with Colin's Hope and say, okay, I'm talking to parents and you have a pool in your backyard, and I could better understand. It was like my incubator, my lab that I could work in one day a week for a couple of hours and really see the realities of, are people leaving the gates open? Are they leaving pools or toys in the pool? What are the behaviors that we need to address? What are the things, the real life things? And I did that for a year, and I definitely liked when we didn't have live oak trees dropping their leaves into the pool or pollen. And there were certain pools that were a lot harder to deal with from a design perspective. But I also analyzed every pool from a safety perspective. Like, why did they make that a 3-tiered pool with a big 10-foot wall drop off? And, there's no fence around this. Or it really allowed me to see deeper into people's backyards and also into just what it takes to help maintain the pools and all the things that could go wrong with gates being left open and that kind of thing. So I'm very grateful for that experience, and I like the manual labor of it actually also, except on really cold days. I don't do well with cold. So the winter cleaning was a little hard, but
yeah, well, that's when the pools are easiest though.
True, but if you fall in, which has
in.
happened to me once, thankfully
I fall
it
in
was
the
warmer.
wintertime too.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. You never fall in the summertime. You jump in maybe on purpose.
Or you purposely?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I fell in.
Purposely fall in.
Oh, I'm sorry, I fell in. Yeah. Oops. I'm glad I have my bathing suit on under this. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, I think it's very good to be hands-on in that and understand those kind of things. You can see a different perspective by being in there. I think that's what helps us with doing the podcast is we did it for 5+ years and understand the struggles, understand the challenges and, successes and things like that come with it. So it's good to be involved in that. So I know you've gone and you've talked to some other pool companies, like Hal from Patriot Pool has been on the podcast. He's a really good friend of ours.
Hey,
and
Hal.
I think O'Neill's Pools as well. You've done some stuff with them. So can you kind of share with us, some of the important things you discuss with those companies and when you go meet with their employees?
Sure. So I'll use both of those examples. So with Hal's, with Patriot, he invited me to come speak to all of his entire team. I think even the folks that manage the office side of things were in there. And with them, I talked to them. I shared Colin's story. I also shared some of the other stories because Colin didn't drown in a backyard pool. I shared some stories of kids that drown in backyard pools and a variety of situations, because I think it was important that they plug into how the reality of, the backyard pools that they're in every single day, that this happens. So I shared some stories to make it kind of applicable to them, and then talked about some very basic things that they could do. One of the things I say to people, and Jeremy Smith, who's with in Texas, he's with IPSA and has a pool company, and he's also on the board for the National Drowning Prevention Alliance. I heard him say this one time in a session where he said, pool guys and gals have such an ability to impact the homeowner. They're trusted. The homeowner's letting them in the backyard, and so being able to talk to the homeowner about safety concerns is something that a conversation that can be had. And so that's what I try to communicate to the pool service folks, is the power that they have to make a difference, the power that they have to save lives by just having a conversation with a homeowner, or just leaving a water safety tag or card during the month of May for their homeowner. Or you see a toy in the water, and you can get that toy out and move it up and move it out of the pool area. And it's just simple behaviors we talked about that they could do as in their day-to-day work. Do you notice that there's a gate that's being left open? Then talk to the homeowner about it. And also, I know when I was cleaning pools, we'd have to go in and out, get the chemicals, get the whatever, and making sure that they're shutting the gate every single time you leave. You have no idea if there's a child in that house that could get out, or an animal or something. And so I talked to them about really practical things that they could do just in their day-to-day doing their job, and being mindful. And so that's what I did in their in-service. And I'm about to do one for O'Neill's as well, which is another pool service company in Austin that we work with. They also have a retail store. Mm-hmm. And so with them, we trained there's a backyard safety checklist, which they're doing here in Arizona. And we've been trying to we work with the National Injury Prevention Council. It's a woman, her name is Kim Hodges, and she actually lost her son, Brandon, to a backyard pool drowning years ago when they lived in California. And she helped create this checklist, and it covers everything. And it's not an inspection, and that's a really important thing. It's not a safety inspection. It's a checklist, and it covers everything from basic safety questions to get the homeowner thinking about, do people in the house know how to swim? Do we allow children to swim alone? Just some basic safety questions. And then there's questions around fencing. Is there a fence? Are the gates self-latching, self-closing? There's questions about drains and just safety questions. And so we trained the O'Neill's pool service techs to go in and actually do those checklists with homeowners. It's a voluntary service that they provide. So they say, hey, we have the ability to do this safety check if you want us to do it. And then they talk about what they might have found. Oh, we found that your latch doesn't work on the gate, or the drain cover is missing a screw, those kinds of things. And then engage with the homeowners around things that they can do to make the pool environment safer. So we worked with O'Neill's on that. And then they also have a retail store. And so they collect life jackets for us from their retail store that we then use to stock loaner stations at local lakes. So we have a couple of lakes in Austin where there's a life jacket loaner station. So if you get there to the lake and you don't have a life jacket, you can borrow it. And so O'Neill's set up this station in their store, and they collect life jackets for us, or they ask people if they want to buy one and donate it to Colin's Hope. Mm-hmm. So we love to come up with unique ways to partner. All of Hal and Patriot and O'Neill's, they hand out our water safety cards. I'm not sure what the schedule is. A lot of our pool service company partners do it during the month of May because that's water safety month. So every time they service a pool in that month, they leave a water safety card. We've also encouraged people to put the link to the water safety quiz that we talked about on the invoices, or somehow challenge their homeowners to take the quiz. I know at O'Neill's, they for a while we're doing, if you take the quiz and show us that you take it, you get 10% off of your purchase or something like that in the retail store. So really just getting these great companies to talk about this,
embrace it,
to embrace it,
yeah.
and show their customers that they care. I mean, I know when I was cleaning pools, I would see kids that were in the house, or I'd see the pets that were in the house, and again, you're a trusted person in people's backyards. So why wouldn't you be a good carrier of this message of something that could keep their families safer?
Yeah. I just thought about this story, and do you remember that house in Stonegate that we had that was like kind of difficult with trees all around it, and it got dirty all the time? We had some other issues there, but
Moss?
Yeah. So we had that. I didn't want to say the name, but you just said it, so that's who it is. So do you remember they had that? Like,
sorry about that.
They had like 3 gates.
I'm sure they're not listening.
They already don't like us anyway. So if they had 3 gates, remember, and then that pool gate, they used to always leave that rock and stuff open. And I would every time we clean that pool, I remember I would tell you or tell whoever's with me, like, no, make sure that pool gate gets closed every time. And I remember like she literally came out to me and was like, please don't close the pool gate anymore. I have to put that brick up every time. I don't like it. And I was like, yeah, I'm not walking away from the backyard with the pool gate open. And that was even before I understood more about the water safety, but I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why do you have the pool gate if you're going to leave a brick in front of it?
Yeah, fix the damn thing.
Well, but they purposely left, because it was self-latching. They just purposely left it open because they didn't like unlatching it every time or something.
Right.
And I was like,
I think it's a lot of people just don't even think, hey, even if they don't have kids in that home, like there's neighbors. I mean, we have lots of stories, sadly, of kids who found the neighbor's pool that was either unbarriered or unfenced. Another one that people might not think about is we recommend keeping a 4-foot like clear path from around the fence of like furniture and things that kids can climb, because we've seen kids push something up against the fence to climb over it. And so that's one thing that is a good thing that I tell our pool tech partners, or I keep changing how I'm saying that. Sorry, I don't know what the correct way to say it is.
Pool professionals is how we start using. Pool professionals.
Pool professionals.
There you go.
So we tell our pool professionals that if they get to a house and there's like furniture stacked up on the fence, or even firewood or something, to think about mentioning it. We teach our kids, I don't know, at least mine, middle school, is see something, say something. It's like if you see something as a pool professional that might be a safety thing, then do it, say it. I mean, the person might not be super receptive, but at least you said something and brought it to their attention.
You're not responsible for it if something happens.
Yeah.
And we talked about it recently too, about we would tell our technicians to pull the toys out, but a lot of that was for aesthetically pleasing reasons, so that the pool looked good whenever the toys weren't in it. Because even if you clean the pool and leave the toys in it, it still looks dirty to me as an owner. But we would just tell them to pull it out. But I think there's more to that, obviously, in pulling the toys out. And because I used to leave them, I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I'd leave it on the deck around the pool.
Right.
And as we talked about getting to know you more and through this stuff, like those are distractions, and they actually bring kids closer to the water. So when you pull the toys out of the water, pull them away from it, put them on the patio, or far away from the water, so it's not a distraction for a kid to walk over closer to that pool. I don't think we drove that home enough with our team, and I wish we would have paid more attention to that. And like I said, I'm guilty of it. I just like flop the toy out.
Well, you
right
don't even think you don't even think about it, right? When you're looking through, I look through the drowning prevention filter all the time. Most people don't do that, and certainly pool professionals, when they show up, they're looking through the aesthetically pleasing. I'm going to clean the pool. I want this to be beautiful. These people are paying me, and they're not looking through that filter. And so one of the things that I feel like in talking with everyone is we can say, look through this different lens or this different filter for a second, and you really can have the power to save someone's life. If you, I was talking about Joshua Collingsworth earlier about his dad, and what happened with Joshua is they think that he made it out the door. They were having a family gathering. He made it out to the pool, and he saw his brother's water gun, and he wanted to fill it up. And it was like the water gun that his older brother wouldn't let him play with. And he saw it. He was 2, and he saw it, and he leaned over in the pool to fill it up and fell in. And so that's a example of a toy that was a distractor. And I know when one of the pools that we cleaned, there would always be this baby carriage, like not a baby carriage that a human baby would be in, but like the one you push the baby doll in. And it was always right by the pool. And it used to drive me crazy. And so I would every single time take it and move it and put it as far away from the pool area as humanly possible. And that homeowner was never home. But it was like, okay, if I do this every single time and they see this baby carriage by the back door instead of by the right at the pool's edge, then maybe, maybe the toddler that's pushing that will not end up that close to the pool. But it's huge, it's simple things. And so challenging people to look through a little bit of a different filter and see that they can really make a difference in making the pool look pretty, but also making the pool safer.
Yep. I think making that a big part of your onboarding process with your team, because who knows if they do have experience or no experience. I mean, I think you listening, Kyle? When Kyle came over here from Minnesota to be a pool service technician, he had no idea, and he had a little bit of an experience with that. But, a part of our onboarding, we talked about it, but we sort of just grazed over it. And I don't know, you want to reiterate that a little bit, Kyle?
About the pool fence?
Yeah.
Well, I had an issue while cleaning a pool that wasn't too far away from the office, and they had a pool fence, but it wasn't one with a gate. So you had to unlatch it and take down part of the fence to get to the pool. And I had an issue with my pool pole, so I left there to go get a new pole, came back, but you guys had been following behind me checking my progress because I had just started there. And they were like, why'd you leave this fence open? I was like, well, I had to go get a new pole. They're like, you can't leave this open. A kid could fall in. I was like, I didn't know what it was for. I mean, to me, it was just a fence. Like, I had no clue. I had no idea what it was.
But it's crazy how, some people just have, if you've never seen anything like that, Kyle's from Minnesota. He's barely even seen a pool in real life.
Than, like,
besides at a hotel or something. Yeah. But, you have to take into consideration that somebody might not know a single thing. That's how you should approach everybody that's a part of your team. And when we're talking about technicians, that you should let them know how serious your company takes this, kind of thing.
It's leading with the safety. I love the onboarding. I'm going to use that. And when I'm talking, and I think that is great. If it's like a new employee orientation onboarding, put this as a little piece in there. I mean, I think that's
because that stuff sticks. If you kind of like really emphasize on that, they remember that. Like, man, he's talking a lot about that.
And empower them, know that they can make a difference. I mean, I think everybody, I don't care who you are, everybody wants to feel like they can make a difference in something. And if this is something that every single time, I mean, how many pools are on one day? Like in one day, how many pools would you clean?
15 to 20.
Okay. So 15 to 20 a day, 15 to 20 times a day, you could, in essence, potentially prevent a drowning from happening.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good part of my day.
Yeah, that's a good part of it.
Right?
Or you could be part of the negative side of it, and you have 15 to 20 pools that you could be
leaving something open for something to happen. So I think that's a great thing to encourage people to do in their onboarding. I love that.
But making it a habit. Mm-hmm. So in your interview with Eric of Lifesaver Pool Fence, Eric said something that really made us think, and that was, would you as a pool professional really know what to say to a homeowner if the question came up, how do I make my pool safe? We definitely had to think about how we would answer that. Could you share with us in what you feel would be the best way to really answer that question?
Sure. First, I would say you can't make any pool safe. So I would say safer. That's something that we say is water is inherently dangerous. And so we say safer. It was something I had to train myself to say. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is think about it in layering, layers of protection. We talk about layers of protection, and that's the best. There's no single silver bullet, so to speak, to prevent drowning, but it's layers of protection. And so if I was talking to a homeowner, I would say, a couple of things, like you can, what are the potential layers of protection that you can put in your environment to make the pool safer? So that's everything from every single door that goes out of the house, if it's a backyard pool, out of the house to the pool area, has locks that are not reachable by children. Even a kid pushing a chair up to it. Think about that, pushing a chair up and unlatching. So locks on doors, door alarms, so that if a door is open, because that's your first layer of protection that, somebody's going out the door. We also encourage, another layer of protection is isolation fencing, so four-sided fencing. So not just using the house as one of your fence sides, but really literally putting the fence all the way around that pool, because we've seen kids get out doggy doors, we've seen kids get out back doors and access the water. I talk a lot about blocking access to water. So what are all the things? Think about it. How do I block access to water? It's like constant visual supervision and watching kids is great, and it's the first layer of protection, but we're human, and we're all parents, and we would be lying if we said that our children are in our visual, space 100% of the time, right? So watching, and certainly when you're out by the water, that's watching 100% of the time and not being distracted. But in terms of making the pool safer. So we talk about the locks on doors and alarms, talk about a four-sided fence. There's all kinds of fencing. I mean, I know people, a lot of the times I get arguments from people about, well, I don't have a fence around my pool because it doesn't look pretty. It's not aesthetically pleasing. And there's lots of different types of fence. There's mesh fences that are removable, that are not permanent. So I've had conversations with grandparents who have a pool, and their grandchildren are not there all the time. And so they use a mesh fence to put up that they can move as the fourth side. There's your typical metal fencing. There's wooden fencing. There's beautiful glass fencing, which is obviously more expensive, but it's really pretty. You've also got pool covers. So you've got pool covers that are automatic. You've got the kind you have to pull over. You've got manual covers, pool alarms. So you've got alarms on doors, but you can also have alarms in pools that when the surface of the water is broken, alarm goes off. There's nets. Like I know one of the nets, it's a catch a kid net. Catch a kid. Yeah. And so there's, I think the best safety mechanism, if we're talking about layers of protection, is a four-sided fence with a self-closing, self-locking, latching, and the gate opens away from the pool. Mm-hmm. I think that's the best blocking access method, but layering them all. I mean, I as far as I'm concerned, having, if one fails, you have another. I used to work for General Colin Powell, and he was a totally different topic, but he was talking about resources for kids. And if you think about it like layering a net, like a cargo net, where you put one thing and then there's another thing that's reinforcing it. And so if one thing fails, you've got multiple things. I mean, I think that's what we talk about in terms of making pools or pool environments safer, is how many things can you put into place. So if something fails, if somebody accidentally leaves the door open, or the kid gets up and unlatches the thing, or the dog door is left open, then there's something else. There's something to slow them down and block the access. So those are the simple things, I think. And I also cannot not mention the whole educating and talking about water safety rules, and talking to kids and having family rules around water safety, because I think that's a layer of protection, and I think it's something that we need to work on.
And I think another thing to touch on that is actually having contacts for homeowners. So if you should have relationships with pool fence people if this is something you're going to be talking about, because I don't think there'd be anything worse than somebody asking, and they're like, perfect, do you have a contact for that? And you're like,
absolutely.
I'm letting you know what you should do. That's not my job to hand that over, but you should. That's how things get done. Yes, I'll call him right now, because we had the guy that did my pool fence, because he does all different types of fences and gates and things like that. I probably passed that number out like over 100 times. Oh, yeah. Like, do you have a contact for that? Most definitely. Here.
Absolutely. I know we work with a guy named Shane Christ, Pool Safety USA. He's on our board. He's really great. He's a guy that I lean on whenever I'm needing information around pool safety things and fencing and things like that. And his recommendation, because I asked him for some, told him I was coming to do this and said, do you have any thoughts you want me to say? And, he said, yeah, there are safety consultants too. And I think you're right that having, as a pool service company, having your Rolodex, which doesn't exist anymore for most people, but
I beg to differ.
Yeah, he has one on his
I
desk.
actually just bought one.
bring back the Rolodex and the felt pennant, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Business cards are still getting passed out.
I like them. I'm going to get one too. But knowing those resources and building those relationships is huge, because it doesn't have to be you that is the one who's responsible for putting that barrier or that layer of protection in place, but you can make that connection is huge.
It just makes you look more professional too,
absolutely.
like we always talk about, because you have a solution for their problem.
Definitely.
If you don't, homeowners looking for you to trust you and your recommendations, like they hired you for a reason. If they ask you a question every time and you don't have any answers, you don't look very professional. If you have we had like 40 different contacts on a sheet of paper for our receptionist that would be like, if they call in about this is who you refer, this is who you refer. So that way she sounded educated on the phone and we sounded more professional. I was like, oh yeah, we don't actually do that, but
but
these
here's who
guys
does.
do.
Right.
Taking that, I think that's a good professional.
We don't ever want to say no or you don't know.
Yeah.
Or even if you don't know, then let me
figure it
get
out.
that for you. But a couple of other little things that can would answer the question, how do I make my pool safer, is looking at what they have in the pool area. So is there a reaching pole or a shepherd's hook or something where if someone's in trouble that you can reach or throw them something, a ring buoy on the fence. I mean, you see them a lot at commercial pools, but how many times do you see people that have that stuff on their on their fence? I mean, you can also use the cleaning pole as a reaching device.
That thing's called the shepherd's hook?
The shepherd's hook.
Really?
I don't
feel
know.
pretty bad for not knowing that.
Hey,
but
you learned something. But something that
I did not know that was what it's called.
Something that we've been doing at Colin's Hope is we also are we have like our curriculum that I talked about, but we also have a at-home water safety kit that we just put on our website, and in it has things like a sign that you can print out and put up in the pool area that has the home address, and because if you have to call 911 and if it's not your house and you don't know the address and you have to tell the first responders where to go, that's something. So the address is a good thing. So having some sort of signage up, also having a phone in, not many, I don't know about you guys, I don't have a landline anymore. So it's all about like cell phone, but making sure that there's always a phone that's in the pool area, not being on it and being distracted, but in an emergency to call are some good things. And in terms of safety with drain safety, the Virginia Graham Pool and Spa Safety Act, I mean, there was, I'm not going to go into all the details of that, but making sure that drains are compliant and that they're not missing screws, that they're not cracked, because drains, when it's cracked, if you've ever put your hand on the top of a vacuum cleaner hose and you feel that suction, a pool drain, if it's not covered properly, can pull up to 695 pounds of pressure. So imagine a child or a person getting their hair stuck in that, or their arm, or their, if you have a broken drain cover. So those are simple things that, in terms of making the environment and the pool safer. I know when I was cleaning pools, I found a drain that had a screw missing and had to get in the water in my wetsuit because it was cold and replace the thing. And another thing too is teaching people to know how to shut the pump off and where to do that. Homeowners need to know how to do that, because if you do have some sort of entrapment, that's the first thing, is shut the pump off.
Definitely. So we ran into an interesting situation when we were in Atlantic City. Our booth was right next to the National Drowning Prevention Alliance. And, they were telling us this story about how a lady a while back had told them that they were going to ruin the industry by spreading awareness because it was making people scared to build pools. And we couldn't really believe that somebody would say something like that, because it's just so crazy. You know what I mean? Like, you have to educate people on this topic. And for somebody to say something like that, we started thinking that there very well might be tons of people out there that feel the same way. So Maybe, have you heard anything like that before?
I think I know who you were talking to. Probably my friends Alan Korn, who's also with Abby's Hope, and Adam Ketchmarchi, who's the executive director of the NDPA. I work closely with those guys on a almost daily basis, and they're probably talking about there's a fear, a liability fear, a fear of wanting to. People don't want to talk about the drowning because they don't want to. They don't want to think that anything bad can happen. They don't want to not sell a pool. They don't want to not sell a product. They don't want to put that as what they're leading with, because then someone might not buy that pool, or someone might not, whatever it is. I think it's the fear. A lot of people have fear around things, and I think that's probably where the pushback is coming from when people say things like that. I know. For me as a person, I always like to lead with the positive, and this could easily be solved by diffusing a situation and leading with let's talk about prevention versus if you're going to be in trouble if you don't do, or if something bad happens. And I think a lot of people are looking through, again, you'll hear me talk about what lens are you looking through. Like, people look through like the lens of the liability lens, or I don't want to get sued if something happens, or I don't want to be accountable for that, or I don't want to take responsibility for that. And I think that's probably what's driving that comment that they made. And I think if we can get people to shift and think about it from, I'm going to come from the positive, and I'm going to care about the family who's building this pool and their safety, and lead with, here's how I can help with that. And I mean, maybe you look like the hero then, versus the, feeling like you're coming at it from, you're going to cause them to think about something that's negative that may turn into them not, having that pool.
I know personally, I'd rather have a conversation up front and the customer say, no, I don't want to buy the fence or whatever, than be having the conversation later of the fact that you didn't tell me that I could buy a fence, and this probably could have prevented my kid from drowning or something. Like, I would much rather have the initial conversation and the customer be responsible for that than, me as a professional being responsible for that, or in a way. But
a fence is just a barrier. You just need to put something up that, keeps people away from the pool. There is probably a zillion different ways to do that. It doesn't have to be just a traditional pool fence. We're just looking on House and how creative, different people have been with glass and, kind of more farm style, type
fencing
and things like that. So there's a million different ways to be really creative to where you can still see the pool. And it's just, an addition you can add to the aesthetic of the.
How many times can we say aesthetic?
I think we're up right now. We're probably at 20 or so.
Probably the most. We're pretty good.
But it shouldn't compromise either one of those. You should be able to have a beautiful looking pool that is safe, and that's it.
Absolutely.
Why can't we do that?
I think it's how I believe in, like, people meet you where you are in life, whatever it is. And I think this is one where if I come to the table talking about, coming at this particular issue from a standpoint of, we want this to be a beautiful thing in your backyard, and we also want it to be a beautiful thing that your family gets to enjoy it, your entire family gets to enjoy it, and come at it from that side of things, and have the person meet you, like you're saying, they could meet you and say, forget it, I don't want to have it, and then sadly that's on them to have made that decision. But if the pool professionals can become carriers of this message and own that they have the power and the influence to help people make safer decisions, I mean, I think that is huge. I respect so many of our partners that are in the pool industry that are willing to have that conversation, that are willing to engage people in the conversation to talk about it. And I think if we can get more people on thinking of it and looking through that lens versus the fear lens, we got some pushback a while back when we were trying to do the checklist from pool service companies that didn't want to do a safety checklist because they thought it was an inspection and they didn't want to be liable if something happened, and they had suggested something, and it was kind of that fear. It was fear. It was all about the fear that's underlying. And so if you can get people to think of it as, hey, I I can actually bring something positive to the equation, and then yes, there are lots of options for whatever people want. I think it can really make a huge difference.
Yeah, and be more creative with it. In terms of, what's going on in the world today. Maybe you just saw like on Instagram that Will Smith has a pool fence around his pool. Like, dude, you could totally be like him. Don't you want to be cool? I mean, you could totally take a picture of your pool and you got a fence around it, like Big Willie style. Like,
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? Like, there's so many different things you can, like, if you don't want to have that bad aura of like the drowning around it, maybe kind of, put that out there. Like, we want to make this pool safe, but we can make this thing look really cool where it's doing both things here. You
Absolutely.
Get a really cool looking pool and it's safe. Anybody can be in your backyard, enjoy the backyard. And, you shouldn't be scared about them getting past this point, so.
Yep. I want to see Will Smith's fence.
I know, right?
Does he really have a really cool pool fence?
I did not see that. I don't even know why. I must have been watching some motivational videos this morning.
I want to say one more thing about that's like a layer of protection. It's the last one that we talk about because we don't want to ever get there, but it's the learning CPR. In the case of a drowning victim, they really need full CPR, so they need the compressions and the breaths. But for pool professionals who spend their time around the pool and the water all the time, for anyone, actually, homeowners, anyone, I think CPR is a tool that everyone should have in their toolbox. And there's, you can get certified, and it's a long day class, or you can, at least learn compression only CPR, and very quickly. That's one thing that I think is really important, and can add a layer of protection and safety. Again, we don't want to get to the point where we have to do the CPR, but if you get to it,
it's more important to be able to do it.
Prevention.
If it gets there.
Yep.
It's going to happen. You want to be prepared for it.
Absolutely.
And myself and Tyler being in the pool service industry, I feel like there wasn't too many times we did not educate the customers on, their pool. If they had a pool fence, we would just kind of talk a little bit like, did you have this installed? Was it here before? All those different things. But anytime, we're doing an initial bid and there was no pool fence, nothing, protecting anybody from going into the pool, always brought that up. Mm-hmm. And don't feel like really had any weird pushback on it. I would usually talk about the story with my brother, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they would, I'm so sorry that happened. I'm like, yeah, well, thankfully he's okay. But, kind of use that to, maybe get a pool fence around here so that you don't find yourself in a similar situation or worse. So it's just really, don't ever stop talking about it. It should be like anything else that you do. You know
I agree. I have the conversation because if someone wants to get mad in the moment or don't want to hear it in the moment, but you've tried to do something that's working towards saving a life or preventing them from having to go through some sort of emotional pain and hardship. And I mean, who can argue with that?
But you have to find your way and style of doing it. You know what I mean? You can't just come out with it. You have to figure out the best way to really get that point across.
Yep.
Because it is what it is. Like, you have to say something.
Yeah.
Don't not say anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? And if they just kind of write you off from it, it's like...
Well, they made that decision. At that point, they made that decision. You try to do your part.
And they may think about it later. I mean, that may be a thing where, like, a couple of hours later, in the moment, they may shut down that conversation. Then, like, 2 hours later, they may be like, wow, let me actually think about that. And,
But you should stand for something.
Absolutely.
There's been times where people would say something that I didn't agree with, and I'm like, like, with all due respect, these are the facts. You know what I mean?
You're the professional.
Yeah, exactly. What do you have me out here for?
Right.
So anyway, you should know what you're talking about. You should know all these different things, and build relationships with other companies that install pool fences. Or maybe that's something that you tack onto your business. There's probably good money to be made in installing pool fences, and it's a double whammy. Your customers' pools are safe, and you're getting more business.
Yeah, I was going to say that Chris Anderson from Ledgelander did that talk when we were at the international show, talking about looking at other ways to make money within your business. And when you're building pools, or a lot of people just focus on the pool only, but you can put waterfalls, you can put slides, you can put ledge loungers. You can, put other things in the pool that help not only, if you added a pool fence to that arsenal, then you could not only maybe prevent somebody from drowning, but you can also benefit from a financial standpoint from a business, and even look at it that way instead of also of, I don't want to put fences in because it's not aesthetically pleasing. But
I'm officially never saying that word ever again.
What, aesthetically pleasing?
Yeah. What are alternative words for this?
Well, thank you so much for sharing everything with us. It's been a pleasure having you in here. Can you please tell us how to find Colin's Hope and how to get involved if we want to, or if the, listeners want to get involved, how they can do that?
Absolutely.
How they can do that?
I want them to do that. And so the easiest is probably colinshope.org. COLINSHOPE.org is easy. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Really try to work through different social media platforms. We also do have a phone number too. If anybody wants to call, it's on the website. And we have a P.O. box so someone can mail us something with a stamp. Donations are highly accepted through that method. You can also donate online, but no, find us online is probably the easiest way. There's a contact form on there for whatever it is that you want. If you want water safety cards, if you want to ask a question about water safety, each on our website, there's a page dedicated to each layer of protection. So, for example, the barriers around water, which is fences and locks and latches and all the things we just talked about. There's a whole page that delves into all of that. And wear life jackets. There's a whole page on how to choose the right life jacket. What's a U.S. Coast Guard approved life jacket? So our website's a really, really great way. And we respond very, very quickly. So send an email or call. But if you think that you want information, or you think that you want to do some work in this area and help us raise water safety awareness of people that you interact with, please reach out. We pride ourselves on working with anyone, wherever they're at, in whatever way they can to help us. And that's strategic partnerships and organic partnerships are really important to us. And I can't stress that enough because
you're based in Austin, but you work with everybody around the whole country, right? And
yes, we're based in Austin, but obviously with social media and with the online, and now we have this curriculum that we're getting out everywhere, and we're getting water safety cards out everywhere. And we really want to be wherever we can. We have limited resources, but if we can strategically keep those resources coming in with donations and partnerships and things, and then strategically manage our resources, we can reach so many more people. And thank you guys for having me on and for caring about this issue and for wanting to raise the issue within the pool industry, because I feel like there's so much power in this industry in so many different ways, whether it's in the backyard or it's the pool builder or it's the and anyone that interfaces with pools in this case can help us. And I think it's going to take everyone. I say we've all got to get in the pool together and work together. And I understand that pool service companies compete in a business thing, but we can't look at it that way. We've all got to come together to do this. Because if I don't work with one person, then I don't get to impact the people that they would be able to reach. So thank you, because you're going to help us reach so many more people.
You're very welcome.
You're welcome. A pool professional will be listening to this while they're walking into a backyard and leaving a backyard. And I think that is the coolest thing, that we will be, touching a business in that way that they will probably never forget to probably do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really important.
I did not want to forget, though, we do want to challenge the Pool Chasers community to go to colinshope.org and take the water safety quiz. If you can please go do that, put hashtag Pool Chasers. We can monitor it. We'll be doing some cool stuff with Alissa and Colin's Hope on that. So please take the challenge. Do it if you can. And thanks, Alissa.
Yeah, thank you. And, as Colin used to say, he used to say today was the best day ever. So we'll just close it out with have the best day ever.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We know that your time is valuable and we appreciate you spending that with us. Also, if you guys missed episode 30, we discussed how we are now doing Pool Chasers full time. We're super excited for it, guys. It's a very big step as husbands and as fathers, but we truly believe in the message. We 100% believe in the Pool Chasers community. So we launched our Patreon page. So if the podcast has brought you any value at all, please consider donating financially. Every little bit helps. We're very committed to bringing you guys the best content possible. This will help us go out and get that content for you. So if you believe in the podcast as much as we do and you want want to sign up to be a patron, go to patreon.com/poolchasers. That's patreon.com/poolchasers. This would mean the world to us, guys. We truly appreciate your time and your ear. We will not take it for granted. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, please email us at poolchasers.info@gmail.com. Please take the time to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you have not checked out the Facebook group yet, please do so. It's awesome in there. Also, if you could take a little bit of time to go to Apple Podcasts and rate us and review us, that would really help us out there. So thank you guys so much for the support. We appreciate all of you so much.
See you out there, pool chasers.